1509, March 1st, 2025, right now marks 754 hours of progress on the Global Harvest simulation. Currently, the translation system has been implemented, which allows for the modification of multiple objects simultaneously. This is from the tutorial code, although this project differs a bit in that it makes the organization of it more explicit in terms of the logical flow of the program. For instance, in order to demonstrate what that actually entails, one can look at how the actual tutorial code is formatted. The issue with the formatting of most code bases seems to be that, at least with C++, functions are thrown around randomly within source files, such as the shutdown function in the middle of the source file, and the frame function calls the render function, and the render function is a dependency of frame, so ideally render should be put above frame, although it doesn't really affect the execution of the program. It does affect the understanding of the program if one who hasn't written the code is to look over it. Now, a more natural way of organizing that would be having the code like this, where the initializer is obviously the first thing, and the variables that these functions depend on are put at the top. Sometimes in headers they're put at the bottom, the very bottom, so the functions are at top, and that sort of does not comply with the logical flow of the program. And so initialize, render, frame, and then shutdown. And so that actually explicitly shows how the code executes in terms of its logical flow. And other than that, breaking these classes down into modules that depend on each other also helps to understand it. So whereas this tutorial's code base seems to have around 20 plus lines of code for rendering these 3D cubes, this code base has just 3 files: the data, which is the header, and the logic, which is just the functions for the classes, and the main file, which allocates a console output, which actually isn't even being shown right now. Changing this boolean to true, and then that should print a message. That could be useful for debugging, but not being utilized at the moment. And speaking of debugging, for whatever reason, another thing that's been noticed about these sort of graphics tutorials is they seem to leave out enabling debug layers, and so an actual debug interface has been implemented here, which was actually created by having a debug device variable, which is seen within the Direct3D class or DirectX class, whatever it is. Yeah, the Direct3D class, and there's a debug interface there, and it is initialized. Well, before even initializing the debug interface, what has to occur is having a integer to represent the debug flag, which is occurring right about there. So yeah, there's a debug flag which is set to that, which is some sort of value, and then that is passed off into the create device and swap chain function. And after that, what occurs is the device queries the actual debug interface and Although it can't be really seen what the debug interface is doing now, as there aren't any errors, it is known to be working as going to the shutdown function. If this is removed or commented out, and exiting out of that, yeah, it reports that objects are live since it hasn't been disabled. So that indicates that the debug interface is working. And then just to show that again, with it being released, the pointer being released, there are no warnings anymore. So yeah, that seems to be everything working at this point. And the intention going forward is to move on to the next sections of this tutorial series, now that the method has been found for organizing the code in a way that makes it comprehensible in terms of logical flow. The intention is to go through all of these sections